Can you take us back to the eve of winning the election, and you take that pregnancy test, and that little pink line shows up? Can you take us back to that extraordinary moment? What was going on?
Well, it was an extraordinary moment in a string of extraordinary moments. So we'd been in opposition for 9 years, so we had not been in government for a long time. And so it's pretty soul-destroying to be in that situation.
Your party.
Your party. Yeah. And so I was the deputy leader. Now, in New Zealand, being deputy leader does not mean you are the next in line. It means actually probably you're not too threatening.
Yes.
You're there as a support person to the leader.
Which is where you'd always wanted to be anyway. You love being behind the scenes.
I thought I was much better suited to a role like that. But even then I found that challenging. We're 7 weeks out from the election, and one day my boss and we receive poll numbers that say we're heading south. Things are not looking good. And my leader muses aloud to me, maybe I should step down. And, the panic alarm rings for me in my head. The idea that he's contemplating departure 7 weeks out from an election.
Well, I actually respect that.
I respect that he had that thought process. I did not appreciate.
I respect that he had the self-awareness.
Absolutely. I did not appreciate that he looked at me as the possible replacement. A week after that conversation, he came to work one day, he quit and he nominated me. And so I then found myself in the position of leading the party into an election.
You knew you were going to be nominated though, right?
I had a sense that he'd suggested that if anyone was going to take over, that he thought it should be me. I thought it absolutely should not. And you had said,
and you had done interviews saying, clearly not.
No.
I'm not the one who's running.
Absolutely not.
Yes.
And I meant it.
So you didn't want it.
I did not.
Yes.
I did not. But there's always, I think everyone can identify with that idea that sometimes you can have these dueling sentiments, these dueling values. Course. The idea, on the one hand, that lack of confidence, on the other, a sense of responsibility. Mm-hmm. And so the moment came that he said, well, I'm nominating you and I believe you need to step up. It was just time for the sense of responsibility.
And you were 37?
I was 37, yeah.
Wow.
And then election. Yeah. In New Zealand, we have a system a little bit similar to Germany. You don't always know on election night who has the numbers to form a government. Mm-hmm. So on election night, it was not clear-cut. There was one small party that held the balance of power and they decided they would negotiate with both us and one other party. So we're in the middle of those negotiations. When I start feeling a little off.
Mm-hmm. Had you missed your period?
Well, that was one of obviously there's a number of things that suggest maybe you should think about taking a test.
Yeah.
I don't remember at the time them being large red flags for me, any large red flags. Just feeling a bit off is how I would describe it. And a friend of mine suggested I take a test. And so in the middle of negotiations to find out whether I would be Prime Minister, I first found out I was pregnant. And
you thought what?
I thought you could not write this. Until you did.
Yes.
So I talk a lot more about, how that was a bit of a surprise because having a child had been something we'd thought about, but it had not come easy to me. And so it was a real surprise.
Just when it was going to be the most challenging.
Yeah.
Yes. I love the way the universe set you up that way.
I didn't know if I loved the universe in that moment.
I think I have probably natural levels of anxiety for someone who's 37 years old and 10 weeks ago did not anticipate being in this position and who's also pregnant.
Well, reading this part of the book, you flying all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine going to meetings with your breast pumps.
Yeah.
You're in the back of the car with your breast pumps tucked under your blouse. I mean, it's like you were Superwoman, pumping and speaking and having meetings and making decisions?
Yeah, I at the time...
Because you were determined that you were going to breastfeed.
I was determined. And now looking back on it, I see there were lots of reasons why I was determined. I think I saw it as a series of mini tests. The tests of motherhood, the test to prove that I was doing what I was meant to do. But it was hard, and it didn't come easy for me. And
the breastfeeding didn't come
yeah,
easy.
it didn't. And I think I had this idea in my head that eventually it's just meant to work. But it wasn't like that, and I think it's not like that for a lot of women. And one of the reasons I wanted to write about it was to just demonstrate that, out there in the images that we present sometimes, it may have looked like I was Wonder Woman. It may have. But I would hate that to be the sentiment, because, yes, I was doing a lot and I was carrying a lot, but I had a support network. I had a village. I had an incredible partner who traveled, now husband, who traveled with me, who was our primary caregiver. And if anything, I'd like to put the spotlight on that, because I don't think we should have an expectation that women do everything.
Right. We shouldn't set, certainly you did it, but you don't want to set up the expectation that everybody can run around with their pump in the back of the car.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We should have an expectation that there's a village.
And not to mention, not just running around, with the pump in the back of the car, breastfeeding, doing all the things that are required of a world leader, having other people, the naysayers, question whether you should even have the right to be a mother and also be
and I think this is part of the reason, that you want to do it all and not be seen to break a sweat, because, I was at that time only the second leader in the world to give birth in office. And so I felt a certain amount of pressure to make sure that no one could question that it impaired my ability to do the job. Because what would that then say to anyone else? Another leader, another politician.
So you've got to prove that I can do this no matter what.
Yeah, so hide the morning sickness. Hide the fact you can't quite walk straight after birth. Just make it look like it is entirely possible to do all of those things. And with the right support, you can. But it does require support.